love me, and I love you.
Content warning. The stories and themes shared throughout this podcast may contain themes that can be distressing for you. If needed, please pause and do what you need to do to take care of yourself. If needed, please reach out to a mental health professional for support.
Welcome back to another episode of Resilient AF with Blair and Alana. But pause the Alana and bring in grief coach Emily Tanner. She helps widows navigate loss with compassion, clarity, and a practical path forward. As the founder of Brave Widow, Emily has guided hundreds through her proven 4 seasons of grief RISE framework. RISE framework. I love that. Rawness, isolation, self discovery, and empowerment, helping them move beyond survival into rebuilding meaningful, joy filled lives. Emily's journey began on her own devastating loss. Just days before her 20th anniversary, she was widowed at 37 and became a solo mom of 4. What began as a desperate search for healing evolved into a mission to help others rediscover purpose after loss. Through the Brave Widow Academy podcast and community, Emily offers heartfelt guidance, memorable stories, and actionable tools to make hope feel possible again. And the next step, unmistakably clear. Such important work. A certified faith based life coach and grief recovery method specialist, Emily blends compassion with execution. Her approach challenges the status quo. Grief isn't linear, and time heals isn't a strategy. I couldn't agree more. Emily's warm, grounded energy and powerful storytelling reminds audiences that even after unimaginable loss, it's possible to rebuild something strong, purposeful, and beautiful again. Welcome to the show, Emily.
Thank you so much, Blair. I'm honored to be here.
You know, your story, first of all, I said this offline, but I am so sorry. Like, that is just terrible. It's absolutely terrible that you were widowed at all, let alone in your 30s before your right before your anniversary. What's your husband's name?
It is Nathan.
Nathan.
Yeah.
What year did Nathan pass away?
So it was July of 2021, which is crazy to think about that it's been almost 5 years, like 4.5 years now.
You know what's okay, so the Global Resilience Project was created out of loss. And so when I have guests or authors or people in my world who've created something, became this phoenix rising from the ashes, I have extra admiration because we're building from a place of rawness and openness. And like in a very short period of time, I had a lot of loss, and my mom, my dad, my father-in-law, we miscarried, my husband almost died, and the whole movement started because of all of that. And the fact that this was not even five, or it was 5 years ago, and you've built this in 5 years while in grief is quite spectacular. So congratulations.
Thank you. It has been through a lot of frustration and questioning what we do beyond grief counseling, like what else is there? And just seeing so many losses of other people around me that I just felt like there needed to be some sort of purpose through the pain that has really driven me to do that.
How did your husband Nathan die?
Yeah, so we both had COVID. This was right around the time the Delta variant came out, which is super sticky. And it ended up morphing into double pneumonia. And so we were both bedridden for a week or two. Finally, had to call an ambulance because he couldn't get out of bed anymore. And he would be in ICU for about 11 days. And that time was really hazy. At the time, I was frustrated because I was trying to heal as well. But now I'm a little bit grateful that things maybe weren't so clear because we weren't allowed to go visit him and we weren't allowed to, he couldn't talk very well with his blood oxygen levels being so low. And so um, ultimately, the hospital would call and ask me to come there. And I just remember this moment where I'm sitting in a room across the table from the physician. There was no warmth. There was no kindness, not even a smile. She just looked at me and said, "Well, we think your husband's brain dead." And I remember in that moment, like trying to wrap my mind around, like, how is this possible? Like, he was doing better, things were looking well. Like, what do you mean? You think he's brain dead? You don't know? And ultimately, they would run some tests, and he had experienced some kidney failure and things while he was there. And ultimately, they would not even tell me the results of the test. Just when I came back to the hospital, suit me up, push me in the room, and say, "If you want to say goodbye, this is your chance." And so, he was 40. He physically met really well on lab test results. It was really a shock that we ended up in the spot that we were in.
So his COVID morphed into double pneumonia. He went, did they, like, did they put him in a coma?
They did. They about halfway through, they intubated him and put him in a medical coma, supposedly to put him on a ventilator, supposedly to let his lungs rest and heal. And they also started him on remdesivir, which is very controversial to people
What's
in
that?
how that. So it's a medication that was effective at the time, I think, in about 30% of
Oh,
people, but it also has been shown to cause organ failure, which is what he began to experience after it was administered to him. So there's just a lot of debate online back and forth about the effects of that and that being the hospital protocol. But ultimately, it was a very up and down emotional roller coaster of one step forward, two steps back, and just being unclear on next steps. Thinking that he was doing better and watching, on his My Chart on the app, I could see his test results were coming in and looking better and better. And then just feeling like the rug was pulled out underneath you. Like, well, we tried to pull him back out of the coma. He's not responding. They performed cardioversion 3 times where they had to like restart his heart. So they didn't know if he had a stroke. They didn't know. Really, there were not a lot of answers, which is really hard in the grief space when we don't have exact answers of what happened. So just this moment of pure shock of your whole world imploding.
Emily, I am so sorry. May Nathan's memory be a blessing.
Thank you so much.
That's just heartbreaking. And like, it's just so wild. Like, because it was the global pandemic, right? So it's not, there's that all those layers of complication of not being able to sit with him until they call you in, and the burnout of the medical teams. And like, sounds like their burnout was clouding any sort of compassion or empathy while you're going through some of the worst days of your life. And I just like can't imagine what that was like for you.
Mm. Yeah, I will say the nursing team was really kind and encouraging. And, I worked in healthcare for 20 years. I managed teams across hospitals all over the United States. And so I felt so safe sending him to the hospital. I was in and out of hospitals for work all the time. And so it was just a very strange and different experience with this one particular individual where I just felt like there were no answers and there was no hand holding through kind of a confusing and difficult process.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what happened after Nathan died? And you're now still the pandemic. You now have a dead husband, and you're realizing that you're a widow.
Yeah. So I hated being called a widow for the longest time because I thought widows were only like really old, sad cat ladies.
Yeah, like wearing
And I
babushkas,
just,
like wearing like the headscarf.
yeah. And I was like, no, I don't want this label. And also, I traveled almost full time for work. And so that first year, I continued to work and had to lean on my in laws a lot to help logistically with the kids. We lived out on almost 40 acres
Oh
of
wow.
wooded land. And so I would spend hours, every couple weekends mowing, and it just, life felt so overwhelming because I was the breadwinner, I was the executive, my husband did the cooking and the kids and the property and the car titles and like just all of the admin stuff that has to go on at home. And all of a sudden, that infrastructure for me was gone. And so I literally remember like clinging to my crock pot because I was like, I don't really know how to cook much. And
Same girl, same.
didn't,
It's like, you want
didn't
smoothies or
taste good.
scrambled eggs?
Exactly. Lots of Totino's
At least
pizzas.
crock
Okay.
pots, you just like toss everything in, right?
Yes, yes. And that was helpful because I worked such crazy hours. I never knew like what time would I be off of work? Would I be home?
Wait. Let's take a pause. Did you take time off work when Nathan died?
I did not really take time off,
Mhm.
and I wish I would have done that differently. But the reason that I did not was because we had been sick for 2 or 3 weeks at that point, and I wanted a sense of normalcy. And I knew how to be a leader in my job. I knew how to do that.
That was in
And
your control.
right, that was
Yeah.
a desperately, I'm like, I just want to feel normal. Um, whatever version of normal I can for
Mhm.
a period of time. Um, so yeah, I jumped right back in like within a week after him dying. And I worked for another year ultimately before I ended up leaving there.
Wow. Okay, so sorry, I just had to ask because I know that, well, you're in the US.
Yeah.
Okay, and you
Yeah,
had a
I'm in
job like
Arkansas.
Arkansas. I was like, I hear an accent. So I'm in Canada. And
Okay.
like, so like my mom, so we miscarried. And then 3 weeks later, my father-in-law died, and my mom died suddenly 3 months later, like
Mhm.
after a 3-week battle with cancer. And I'm self-employed. So I didn't really have bereavement. And I was the same. I just dove back into work because it was what was in my control. And I was in marketing and PR. But Canada, like, I think every business is different, but like, there's only a few days of bereavement leave, which isn't enough.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
we
not enough.
had
Yeah.
yeah, we typically offered people like 3 days. And before I knew anything about grief and loss, you don't really know how much time people need or how patient you need
They
to
need a
be. Like,
lobotomy in a year,
yeah,
right? Like,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, so back to the crock pot.
Yeah. So it was just, I felt like everything was so new, like how to work the grill, how to mow the lawn, how to work a chainsaw and cut down trees that had fallen. Like all of that was so incredibly new and overwhelming. And you have brain fog and you're trying to watch the same YouTube video 3 times to figure out like how to do something because you can't focus. It was just, I just felt so lost. I've never felt more lost in my life during that time.
I can't imagine because I have a 1/4 acre and I can't even turn the lawnmower on. Like, I've tried. You probably have a riding lawnmower, but I couldn't turn on the like, I don't know, traditional lawnmower. And I just want to say, like, before we continue, so my husband, not only did he have a heart attack and quadruple bypass surgery 6 years ago, but on the sixth anniversary of that, on October 2nd, he had a stroke. And
Oh,
I've never in my life been like, oh my God, I'm going to become a widow soon because he's also type 1 diabetic. And it's not soon. Like, he's up and about walking and working and skiing, but like his health isn't getting better. And one of the first things I was like, man, should we downsize? Because if something happens to him, how am I going to take care of like the property? If I can't even turn on a lawnmower. I mean, the answer is hire for me. It'd be hire someone. But it's crazy that you're talking about this because it's like you are a widow and that you didn't expect that happening. Where like I feel like I'm in this like anticipatory grief of like slowly
mhm.
watching it and like in this space of being present with him and like, okay, so I'll sell the house and I'll do this. And if that happens, and I'll do this. And like in the meantime, it's like learning how to do everything in case even something happens and he can't do things anymore. Like, we have a trailer that we have parked at the lake. Like, that's a lot of fucking work.
Yeah.
Like the hot
Yeah.
tub, like how do you do the chemicals, right? And so I can't imagine for you with 40 acres, like I bought Shane a chainsaw. I don't even want to learn how to use a chainsaw. Like, that looks scary. It's loud and
Yeah.
it's scary.
Yeah. Well, and I think about this particular time. working so much, I had very limited time to mow the lawn and do those
Mhm.
things that took a lot of time. And I remember one afternoon, I was sitting on that lawnmower, bawling my eyes out because I didn't know anything about the choke and like how to like keep it going so I could get it started, but it would never keep running.
Mm.
And I just remember bawling, thinking like, why does life have to be so hard? I just want to mow the lawn. Why can't I just mow the lawn? Why does everything have to be so hard? And so I would end up hiring a lot of those things out. But I just think about, to your point, how like now it seems so simple because I've done it. But when you're grieving and then when everything you're having to learn how to do is so new, it just feels really overwhelming. And you
Yeah.
just keep thinking, like, I shouldn't have to do this. He should be here. I shouldn't have to be the one having to figure this out.
When do you think from when Nathan died in July to like you stepping into this new life as a widow, primary, like the only caregiver of the people in your life and the land and the provider? When did you feel like you finally started to reground where you were just like, okay, like this is shitty, but I can do it?
I would say 6 months after he died, I felt like I had my feet underneath me with, okay, this is my routine and I hate it. Like this is just the rest of my life. And it was probably that 6 months to 2 year mark where I just felt like I was floating through life
Hmm.
and I could, like, okay, yeah, I could live, but this really sucks. And I just kept thinking, like, is this it? Like, what? I've been to counseling. I've talked with lots of widows. I've read lots of books. Like, what am I supposed to do now? And no one could tell me what to do. So it was just kind of this sad existence of like, I can do this, but ugh, if it wasn't for my kids, like, I really don't want to do this.
I think it's amazing that your kids kind of help fuel you to keep you going. And I can definitely relate to the like, ugh, I hate this. Like, what's the point? Um, I've been there a few times where now I'm very medicated. So and like I've done the healing, but you know, you were this corporate executive and then you transitioned to be the support person, right? This grief coach. You work with specifically widows. Do you work with specifically women widows?
I work with men as well.
Yeah, you've created a framework, you know, and you've probably I mean, I haven't done your work yet. Like there's that dark humor, anticipatory grief, but you've now been working with widows for some time.
Mhm.
Plus, you are one. What are some common things that you're seeing in the widow grief community of like common feelings and common kind of aha epiphanies? Like, what are some of those commonalities that you see that's kind of one of those like great equalizers, like the pandemic was, like putting on your pants? Like, I like to say, because I'm also a grief coach, like, grief is the great equalizer. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic status is, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, what kind of life you've lived. We're not immune to grief.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
yeah.
I would say one of the biggest things that tends to resonate with my people is that no one is coming to save you.
Hmm.
And so, so many times people feel like my life is over, grief never gets better, it's just always going to be this way. It's always going to be terrible. And, it's like that saying, you think you can or you can't, and you're going to be right. It's yes, you get to decide
Hmm.
if your future is going to be one full of misery and sadness and depression. You can decide that and you can be right. And you can also have like the tiniest little seed of faith that even though you don't know how it's possible, that one day it would be possible to enjoy life again. And the biggest question is always like, but how would that be possible because my person isn't here?
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter if I have $1 million. It doesn't matter if I had like this glamorous movie life. The fact that he isn't here with me would always remain true.
Mm-hmm.
And so just allowing people to start with that tiny belief that it could be possible, that's where we start. And then over time, you start to see those glimmers of hope and you start to build a life intentionally. But that for me was the key. And that I think is something that with all my clients I see is that they need to start from a place of hope
Yeah.
and with intentionality of rebuilding their life from the ashes.
Literally from the ashes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. How do you think being a widow has changed who you are as a mother?
Mm. I feel like being a widow has changed me in every way. And a lot of widows even feel like we're not the same person that we were. Much of us has changed. From being a mom in the very beginning, my nervous system was all out of whack. I had tons of anxiety. I spent thousands of dollars on a home security system that couldn't be hacked, commercial grade, because I was just so afraid. Like
Yeah.
if something happens to me, they're orphans. They have nobody, which isn't exactly true. But in the beginning, you're just hyper vigilant with making sure they can reach you and being there for them and finding that balance of being honest with your grief, but not where they think, oh, mom's going over the cliff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
What is the right answer there? Being able to navigate that. And then now just focusing on like helping them look back at the past and remember their dad for the good and the bad,
Mm-hmm.
and not, he wasn't perfect. He wasn't a terrible person, but how do we honor and look back at all the pieces that make up who he was
Mm-hmm.
and who they want to be as parents in the future.
Right. I love that. So here's another question. If you can go back in time and talk to Emily before she became a widow, what do you wish that she knew? What do you wish she did more of or less of?
So many things.
Okay.
But what I would start with is that the things about your spouse that drive you absolutely bananas are most likely going to be the things that you miss the most
Mm-hmm.
when they're not there. Nathan would have this stupid big orange can of like Metamucil out on the counter, always in the way, or his shoes were always in the way, his flip flops were everywhere. And I would get so frustrated that he would leave his stuff everywhere. And so I remember the day after he died, I had this thought like, well, at least I can throw this stupid can away, like get it off the counter, throw it away. And the next time I walked through the kitchen, my heart just sank a little because I was like, oh, well, now it feels like less of him is here.
Mm.
And when I straightened up the shoes, it's like, oh, well, those are reminders that he's part of my life and now that's gone or that's changed or it's looked different. And so I would tell myself that the things I used to get frustrated about, the arguments over how the living room needed to be set up or what color the paint needed to be or, where we go for dinner or whatever, like at the end of the day, none of that stuff matters. None of it matters. What
Mm-hmm.
matters is the memories and the time that you have together and just enjoying co-creating a life together.
That's beautiful. Even if the Metamucil can is annoying, it's still beautiful. I know Shane's a towel crumpler, and you're saying that, and he's gotten better, but like he'll like have a wet towel and like wash it, like wipe down the counter and then just leave it. I'm like, gotta rinse it out and like open it so it doesn't get stinky.
I
14,
know
I've been with him for 14 years and it's like a constant, like it's getting better. But like it's like just
Yeah, Nathan would drop his clothes literally right beside the laundry. I'm like, could you not flick your wrist like just like an inch more and your
no,
clothes
I
would
think
land in the
it's a
basket?
man thing. Like Shane will like put garbage on the counter above the garbage can. I'm like, okay, just put it in.
Yeah,
Oh, those quirky men.
I
Um,
know. And if you are in an anticipatory grief or
yeah.
you are someone with a spouse with a terminal illness, some people are in a hard situation because their spouse refuses to talk about it,
Mm,
feels that it's a betrayal, like they're giving up hope if they talk about the future. But if you can have those hard discussions with your person, you will feel so much more peace about decisions you make in the future. Where if you don't, you might be wondering, well, what would they have wanted? Or we didn't talk about this. I had one client who it was so beautiful. Her husband made videos of him walking his girls down the aisle when they were young children so that at their wedding they could play the video of
That's
him
so
walking them down.
beautiful. Oh my gosh, stop.
I know, it's so thoughtful. Yeah. Like, what a gift.
Wow, that's like very much someone who is proactive.
Yeah. And it's not the norm necessarily, but I do like to let people know if you're in that mode, any letters that your spouse can write, any videos they can make, those are all things that you will treasure more than anything.
Did you watch The Big C?
I haven't.
Okay, I just watched it. It's an older show, but it's about a woman with cancer who's terminal. And there's one episode where she like goes and like gets a storage locker and she buys gifts for her son for like all the milestones, like the wedding and the when you turn the car for when you turn 16 and like wrote him all these cards and then eventually he finds it and like it's a dark comedy. But that just makes me think of that because I don't know. I mean, imagine like because there's your husband who gets sick, goes in the hospital and dies. That's kind of what happened to my mom.
Mm.
She learned she had cancer, went in the hospital because she was in pain, and they're like, you have 2 weeks left to live, and she died 3 days later. But then there's people like with these terminal diagnoses who still have the ability to do these things.
Yeah,
And what a gift.
it is a gift.
Yeah.
And my heart
Um,
goes out to the people who the person with the diagnosis refuses to talk about it, refuses to engage in even acknowledging that. I know that's got to be really hard.
yeah,
Um,
I
really
could
hard.
only imagine. As we're wrapping up here, first of all, what would Nathan say to you today if you saw everything that you've built from the pain?
Oh my gosh, I would love to think that he would say he's so proud of just everything that's come together. I always wanted to be a coach. I always wanted to help people, but I thought it would be around leadership.
Yeah, just a little spin on it.
Yeah. I never really imagined it would be around this, but yeah, I do think he would be really proud.
Oh, Nathan is proud. I'm proud, and I just met you.
Thank you.
Like, yeah, I mean, it's like I could feel your heartbreak, but it's like, the Japanese art of kintsugi where you pour the gold in between the cracks of the porcelain.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
It's kind
beautiful.
of like this work that you're doing, and that's how I feel. And like I can feel it, like your emotions are palpable. Is that the word? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I wish I wish that Nathan was here to see this, but this wouldn't exist without Nathan. And it's one of those things where people are probably telling you these compliments of the work you're doing, and it's like this balance of like, but my husband died.
Yeah.
And, it's a real gift for someone to be able to turn their pain into a superpower to help others. And I think it's amazing what you're doing, especially because I'm 40 and I've now almost been widowed twice. And I'm like trying to put a
Mm.
plan in place because it could happen in 20 years. It can happen in 20 days. Like we don't know. He's now higher risk for heart attack and a stroke, and he's type 1 diabetic. So this conversation was very enlightening for me. But like yeah, the anticipatory widowhood is definitely a precarious place because there's no terminal diagnosis. There's just, we never know, right? Like we never know what's going to happen. Like, but I think this is just that reminder to let those little things go and to plan. If you have the gift of being able to plan things, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's amazing. Okay, so how can people find you?
Yeah, if they want to go to bravewidow.com, that's my website. And also on YouTube under Brave Widow, that's how most people find me. Those are
Oh,
probably the best places to start. And I have a podcast and tons of free resources and downloadables for people who just are looking for ways to get started or things that are most helpful to them, and they can find that there.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay. And I know you've shared a lot of advice. Let's wrap up with one final piece of advice for someone who finds this episode and they are a fresh widow, meaning like it just happened and they're very disoriented. Holy shit, my life is not what I thought it was going to be. I'm in it.
Yeah. Your life isn't over. I know it feels like it is right now. And I know that it seems impossible to even fathom how it could be true, that it won't feel like this for forever. But my gift to you is just the tiniest seed of faith that some way, somehow, you can enjoy life again and hold on to that tiny seed of faith and allow yourself to grieve. Allow yourself to be in that really hard season because there's another season coming.
That's such beautiful advice, Emily. What a pleasant surprise. What a beautiful way for me to start my day with you. And yeah, thank you for the work that you're doing in this world. And that piece of advice is a perfect thing to end on. And if you're listening to this and you're not a widow, but you're in grief or a big change happened, this is very much applicable advice to you. There's always a new season, right? The
Well,
seasons change. There's always a new chapter. Thank you so much for being a guest and joining us on our podcast.
thank you for having me and for all the amazing work that you're doing as well.
Oh, thank you. And thank you to everyone who tuned in for another episode of Resilient AF. Remember, it's okay to not be okay. You're going to get through it one step at a time, moment by moment. Let us be that lighthouse in the storm for you. We're here to hold your hand. And you, my friends, are Resilient AF. That's a wrap for another episode of Resilient AF with Blair and Alana. And thank you for listening. Are you feeling inspired to bounce forward?
Let's connect at theglobalresilienceproject.com, where you can read many stories of resilience, buy our books, shop our clothing line, learn more about how to strengthen your resilience muscle, be empowered, and more.
Remember, friends, you are Resilient AF.